Come, O Holy Spirit, Father of the poor, illumine our hearts and our minds. Come by the means of the powerful intercession of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Lead us to the fullness of the truth. St. John,
Pray for us.
St. Thomas of Aquin,
Pray for us.
the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right. Well, we change our little hats today from theology into the wonderful world of philosophy. A word that has many different connotations. What I'd like to do in today's class is give you an introduction to the importance of the subject matter at hand, and to situate why we're studying it, and then to go through the syllabus so that you understand how we will study it. Why precedes how. A philosophical statement, just to begin. Philosophy conjures up different things, different emotions, different responses. Some people are hungry. Usually people who once who actually studied it are usually hungry for more. A lot of people are scared of it. Some people don't see the point. Some people say they're not good with it. It's a neat word. Just walk around the street saying philosophy and see what people say. Now, let's say usually something like monk or like, mystic or like Buddhist or whatever, But actually what it means in Greek, of course, philia sophia, the love of wisdom. So right away it's using a new word. Philosophia, the wisdom. What is wisdom? We can go all kinds of things. This is what I think. So if I was doing a discussion right now, I'd say, let's list all the words that come to your mind. Blah, blah, blah. And people would really be helped by that. But I take assuming that you don't need it. Wisdom, actually philosophically speaking, is a form of knowledge. It's the highest, let's put it this way, it's the highest perspective one can take to understand a given reality. So when I'm philosophizing, what I'm trying to do is understand there's a question that drives the whole process. And without that question, the process is meaningless. Why? Because especially today, you don't even need people to have this memorized. I got it all in books. I could buy books on tape. I could buy philosophy on tape. I could just download the answer. Give me an answer. Understanding requires this hunger of the mind. If I don't have the hunger of the mind, I have a fact. With the hunger of the mind, I have a discovery. Right? So how awesome to say I'm allowed and I'm even expected to develop hunger. And philosophy is all about that. It's about a love, which if you want is like a type of pursuit. It's about people who are galloping over the ground because they want to understand. The gallop has as its heart this question. Which means if you were to flow chart out how you do philosophy, there's an expression that you can remember and write down. It's a wonderful one. Wisdom begins in wonder. Aristotle. I was going to tell the biography of my life in poetic, theatrical fashion. I would say that would be my first quote. Wisdom begins in wonder. And what he means by that is that we have a sensation, if you want, an experience. You can put sensations, experiences. So basically, a normal day. And most people, this is another quote by Aristotle, you can just write this one down. Most men, of course he means women by that, because women are men and men are women. Most men remain in their sensations. Aristotle. Great phrase to remember and ponder throughout the rest of your life. Most men remain in their sensations. So in other languages, it's clearer. In English, you're kind of like, what does that mean? Because it's vague in English. In French, it's much easier. La majorité des hommes restent au niveau de la vie sensitive. La majorité des hommes restent. So you can say things that are more eloquent in other languages because au niveau de, at the level of, and in English it just sounds so cumbersome. But that's what, if you're going to be precise, you'd say most men remain at the level of their sensations. In other words, here, and this is how far they get. Donald Trump exploits this. I mean, like what I think, with impunity. But it's a sad thing all the same. He exploits it, right? So the idea is Twitter, starting a nuclear war over Twitter. Why? Because most men are in their sensations. It's only 5% that are actually thinking. 95%, let's go get them, let's nuke them, let's destroy them. And people are like, yeah. Because that's how most people live. You are a part of the minority, and the minority that is called to lead the majority. But the vast majority of people are not sitting in this classroom right now. I went across the country last year. We had something like 200 people say that they're interested in SJI. 3 came. Our numbers are amazing, right? From 200 that expressed interest by a card to 3. Now, I'm not trying to say that the rest are rabble, right? But what I'm trying to say is that, why isn't this classroom filled with everyone in the neighborhood that would want to come to a free philosophy class? I remember when I was a college chaplain at Bradley University, my first assignment, right? So I left France so as my 4th year as a brother, they sent me for 2 years of pastoral experience as the Newman Center chaplains at Bradley University. So there's 4 brothers who served as the chaplains at the Newman Center. Father John Therese was my prior. There I was. And I remember it was amazing. I speak 5 languages. At that time, I'd already studied theology for 13 years. And I'm standing there, and not a single person wants to come to a single class that I was offering. None. You try to talk to people. They didn't want to talk to you. We had 0 at Mass. 0 Mass attendance at a weekday Mass. A Sunday Mass, 80 to 110, and with 2,500 Catholics on campus. Now, part of that was because we didn't know what we were doing, and we were way too intense. Right? So, but also part of that is even when you've got an awesome youth program, awesome Newman Center, awesome whatever, you always get the same amount, 30. And then it always hits and tanks at 30. It's an amazing phenomenon. Why? Because most people just don't want to go there. I remember talking to a fellow one time, and I had given him a philosophy book. It was a great book for beginners in philosophy, and called by E.F. Schumacher, called The Guide for the Perplexed. And I'd given it to him because it was awesome, and it explained all kinds of things in this guy's life. And I remember him saying, you know, at my age, I just don't really want to call things into question anymore. Interesting. So what does he do at his age? He sits around and watches Donald Trump talk on TV. Most men live in their sensations. If you can control the sensible experience, dominating the media, figuring out a way to do it, you will control most men. Wisdom begins in wonder. Meaning that this sensitive experience, for some, produces this incredibly fertile state of mind called wonder. Wonder is at the source of the entire quest. I would say not just there of the mind, but since the mind is the principle of the person, it's at the heart of your quest as a person. There was wisdom. I hope you paid attention. If you are spinning around, if you are body tanking out, if you are lethargic in life, what an amazing antidote to go back and to rediscover wonder. For me, this was our 21-day backpacking trip. Quite simply. That's what, it was awesome. Just to be able to be in awe again. And to let everything else go and have nothing else that I could possibly do except sit there and listen to how many notes I could hear in one stream. You know, we're feeling the power of the stream. And that wonder is this state where something is incomplete. It's like a very uncomfortable thing to be in wonder. And yet it's what propels us forward. Think about the last time you were in wonder. Wonder is like, an example of wonder for some would be holding an infant. The state of your heart and of your mind when you're holding an infant, that's wonder. And you usually close your eyes and you isolate yourself from everyone else so that you can be just chest to chest with that experience of this. Wonder could be those moments when someone's eyes flash. It's a weird thing. My mind wants to understand how that works. We see people's eyes all day, and then you can make them flash. And when they flash, you're just in awe of their beauty. I remember a man who'd been married to a woman 39 years, whatever, long time. And he's a grandpa, she's a grandma. And he said, you know, I came back from this trip and I was helping her set up for some reception or something. And you know what, Father? He said, I couldn't stop looking at her. She was on the other end of the room. And she was just so beautiful. And I just couldn't stop. She was so beautiful. Now, she's always beautiful. She's always, but now there's moments where he was just in wonder over this person to whom he was married. Wonder, though, holding an infant, looking at your spouse, the wonder in front of nature, right? To watch a bear kill a goat. Whoa, we'd say. That's so cool. That's wonder. Things that make you say, wow, or cool, or amazing. These are things that you're looking at, you're like, this is out of the ordinary. Yep.
Sorry, could you go back and explain what you meant by the connection between sensations and wonder?
Yep. For some people, namely you, your daily experience is lacking an explanation. There's an incompletion to an act that allows you to say that it's amazing or wow or cool because you don't grasp its cause. You know, an example, how is it that water is so cold? Every time I get water from there, it's ice cold. It's not just the ambient temperature, it's ice cold. How is that? I'm always in wonder about that. And how is it that it can make hot water, that fast? I gotta wait for a stupid thing to boil. I can go right there and boom, instant fast hot water. And then they're side by side. It's the same machine that's hot and cold. That is really wonderful. And when I experience that, I say, this is bizarre to me. Yeah, the red one. And you'll burn yourself on it.
Wow. Amazing.
How is it that coffee sometimes tastes amazing and sometimes doesn't? I don't know. I just order coffee in the store.
Coffee.
It always smells great, and then you taste it and it tastes like swill. What is this? And then other times there's coffee that tastes so amazing that you'll never forget it. What's the difference between those two? It's wonder. How is it that I can write on a surface and then be able to wipe it away? Where does it go? You guys don't think about this stuff? My mind's always going with it. Hot and cold cups. That's amazing. It's both hot and cold. If you put hot in it, it stays hot. Put cold in it, it stays cold. What is this?
Science.
I thought hot and cold were opposite. Science begins in philosophy. Science is an effort of great minds, whose minds first stay wide. Wow, I remember listening to a movie at the Chicago. I can keep going with my questions of wonder. Do you know Aristotle, our buddy who's going to be our master in philosophy here, our main teacher? Do you know that he wrote 2 100 pages of questions that he never answered? No. Go to the Collected Works on Aristotle. It's my favorite book by Aristotle. And all it is questions. He has 2 books that are amazing. One is called On Marvelous Things Heard, which is really funny, but it goes to show you what a fertile mind this guy had. When he heard about amazing things, he wrote it down. Marvelous Things Heard is like 110 pages. And all it is like, they say that on the island of Thraces, the sheep have purple hair. It's a marvelous thing heard. They say that there are goats, that will eat 4 bears, Now, this is a private little thing. For me, I've been listening, and I'll tell you, we have marvelous things heard too. They say that Babe Ruth pointed to where he was going to hit the home run before he hit it. They say that the ocean is over a mile deep in some places. Never been there, but they say that. They say that if a submarine, this is something that I heard, had at the depth of the bottom of the ocean, were to have a hole punched in the side of it, the size of a pin, the water pressure would be so intense it would cut right through you. It's just 3 silly little things that I've heard that have made me say, wow. They say that ghosts haunt an ice cream shop in Wyoming. They say that we have all kinds of things where you hear things that sound marvelous. And some people are more in tune with them. I kid you not. I talked to a guy who told me, I kid you not, it was a marvelous thing I heard. He said that the eyes, the red eyes of the blue horse at the Denver airport are scanning every face in every car that drives past it to identify if it's an enemy of the government. They also say that at the Denver airport, every United States president has bought property around the Denver airport. They say that on Christmas, a man in a red suit flies over the whole world. These are marvelous things. And this is what we would celebrate today, this idea of wonder as a childlike spirit. And isn't it interesting that when Hollywood portrays scientists, there's always something childlike about them. Like, wow, look what I discovered. Live. Frankenstein. There's always something like childlike about a scientist. And I kid you not, I was in Illinois at the University of Chicago's particle physics department, and they played a video about particle physics. And the video began with a guy who discovered the J quark, or something like that. They're looking for like the last one of the quarks. I forget, there's tall, there's top, there's bottom, there's heavy, there's light. This guy discovered one of those. And he was like, they began with what? Picture the sky, crickets, obviously artificial crickets. And they're like, I remember when my dad used to drive us in the back of a pickup truck. My brother Frank and I would lay there. We'd look at the sky as we jostled along our road in rural Illinois. And I remember thinking, wonder what they're made of. And then he goes on, and all of a sudden he's at the cutting edge of building this huge thing. He's trying to find out what stars are made of. When was the last time you asked the question what stars are made of? They say that the stars are an explosion. Explosion of what? How could something be in a constant state of explosion for 2,000 years? What is exploding exactly? We don't know. That's what's so cool. And then when you're looking at the sky and people are like, well, that star there is 200 million light years away. This star here is only 150 light years away, which means that light from the 200 million light year star is 50 million years older than that light. That's marvelous to me. I'll never get over that. How in the world? And how do you travel 50 million light years? 1 million light years. 1 light year. The length of time that a beam of light travels in the space of a year? This is a marvelous thing. What is that? What does that mean? How do we know what it is? How do you get to that? Those are questions that come from the state. And we need to discover it. Because the more that you allow yourself to be filled with wonder at that little host on the altar, and the man in front of you wearing gray, and the people sitting next to you, and the building that surrounds you, the more that your life is an adventure. And your appetite is kindled. And what's the sign of an appetite for life that's kindled? Questions. A question seeks to fill the void of incomplete explanation. I want to know where Fido goes. Fido. By the way, do you know where Fido came from, the word Fido? I just discovered this 2 days ago. A National Dog Day. One of my favorite holidays. I hope you all love your dogs like I do. Fido was the name of Abraham Lincoln's dog. And it's just like popular devotion of Abraham Lincoln that everyone started calling their dogs Fido. And Fido came from the Latin word fido, which means I believe. It's actually, I think, properly fideo. And the article that I read, thing, obviously, was ignorant of Latin, unlike yours. But that's a side point. I seek to fill the void of an incomplete explanation. I want to know, and this is amazing, Aristotle's like, how many types of questions are there? He's like, 5. There's only 5. 5. All can reduce down to 5. Kind of interesting. 5 questions. Can you list them all for me? Let's get some participation. Breathe.
Who, what, when, where, why.
Those questions are ancillary questions to the 5 true questions of Aristotle. But I do appreciate them. He said these will all answer the same kinds of questions. What are other questions you could ask? Why is one? What is one? What does that smell of? Nice. So I had an experience. It was a delightful experience. And I sought to explain it. Why now, in Inglewood, Colorado, is there a campfire? Is my building burning down? Where is a campfire burning in our near vicinity? I'm becoming unnerved.
Neighbors.
Is it a candle?
I'm
That's
sure
not
it's
one of it.
neighbors. Don't you think?
It is that of wood, isn't it?
It's
This is
like-
a wonderful experience. Isn't it funny? You're living it right now. What, where, what of, where from, and how. Now, what I just took you through there, that could be like a whole semester's course, finding those 5 questions. It seems so easy, but the adventure of finding those 5 questions is actually thrilling. I really wish I could spend that time with you. I love philosophy. It's amazing. This is so big. Wow. Our brains are functioning without anybody telling us what to do. Our brains are just functioning. Like we're walking along the pathway right now. So like this is what your brain's supposed to do, is be like, wait, how many kinds of questions? And in that like blank of like a wall that you hit is a glorious adventure of your mind searching on its own. We never do it. Listen to Donald Trump. And we say, what did he do today? And then we yawn, we scratch, we roll over, and we die. It's so cool to be like, why did he do it? And all of a sudden, I'm seeking to fill the void of the incomplete explanation. So in a sense, if you go back to wonder again, the deeper your sense of incompletion, the deeper that you feel the poignancy, to use a word that one of you here would just absolutely love, the poignancy of being. The poignancy of the drama of being. Oh my goodness. The more that your questions will be pointed with enough keenness to reach their due goal. This is why the world of art plays a role of absolutely crucial importance. When Father Philippe was, when our first brother Mary Allen, would ask Father Philippe, he was like, how do I get into philosophy? I love theology, I hate philosophy. And Father Philippe said, read the Greek tragedies. Amazing. How are you going to get into philosophy? Read the Greek tragedies. Why? Because when you read the tragedies, the questions start to grab you. This shouldn't be. Remember the kid who, I think his dad hides in a sack, and then the kid takes a pitchfork and stabs all the sacks by accident and kills his own father. Oh, what a sad story that is. I think it's Oedipus, in the Oedipus thing. Because the guy said, you will kill your father and marry your mother. And he kills his father because his father's trying to escape some ruthless thing or some sort of thing, and so he's hiding away in a sack. And the kid takes a pitchfork because he has to test the sacks or something, and he kills his own father. You don't think that, well, why did that happen? Now your mind is full of poignancy. When you see real pieces of art, and this is so important to me, and I wish I could run Student Life myself so I could do this with you, but I won't even be there. You guys will probably be taken to some sort of cheap art museum. But when you see a real piece of art, not this is not a piece of art, real piece of art. Something that says Mary in a way that's absolutely unique and is one of a kind and is real in front of you. It stirs you. Isn't there a quote from a guy who said that the sculptor stared at me? The sculpture stares at him. That's what's so great about encountering sculpture. Didn't you tell me that? I told this, someone just telling me that the sculpture, what does it say?
Yeah, he says, there was not one spot that does not look at you. You must change your life. Or something like that.
One spot of the sculpture does not look at you.
Yeah.
So that's an experience. There's something about true art when you hear it. The voice of my favorite singer, Mahalia Jackson. When she's singing, that's why everyone wants to listen to her, is that there's that je ne sais quoi, that I don't know what, that sparkle that transcends my ordinary world and that draws me towards it. That's why beauty is so important in our world, and unique beauty. It's because it keeps men's wits warm to things that are. Darling Manley Hopkins keeps men's wits warm to things that are. It fills me with wonder. So, art is a place where we sense this incompletion. This is the role of the dramatic. And if you did the whole study of theater and understood the whole role of drama and how it unfolds and the catharsis and all of the different elements of drama, and there's whole books written about that. The whole idea of it is that it fills you with this state of wonder. It breaks you out of the ordinary. People want to go to the theater because they want to see something amazing. Why do children love to watch movies? They'll sit there for hours and hours and hours. It's because it's enthralling. It's sensual, but it's wonderful sensual. Mountains exploding, gunfire, you firing people, Rambo killing 400 people in one single movie. This is all something that's better than what they normally experience. And that should lead to questions. These questions, in order to answer them, require investigation. In philosophical terms, investigation is usually spoken of in terms of analysis and judgment. The principal role of investigation is to find the cause that explains the incompletion. Campfire. Why is there a campfire? I look, oh, next door they're having a barbecue. And at that, my mind rests. I experienced, was filled with wonder, asked a question, did an investigation, and then when I found the cause, I find what's called in philosophy the principle. And Aristotle has a beautiful word for principle. In Greek, principle is simply that beyond which you cannot go. Isn't that cool? That's what I love about Greek. It's because Greek is a base language. It's an original language. It's vague. And in its vagueness, you have this genius. To be able to say, like, I'm looking for that beyond which I cannot go. Instead of, I'm looking for a principle. What does that mean? I don't know. Ha, ha, ha. I'm looking for that beyond which I cannot go. Did you find that beyond which you cannot go? And then Aristotle, in Delta, actually goes on to give 5 ways that a thing can be a principle. 5, not just 1. 5. It's amazing. So, like, the guy's brain was just absolutely inapt. So, in any case, that's the point of the questioning, is to investigate by looking for the principle that explains the experience. And when you find it, you find rest. This investigation ought to lead to the high point of our human person called philosophical contemplation. I put philosophical, it's not called that, but I put that so you don't think it's the same thing what you're doing in the chapel. Although it's analogous. Contemplation. Contemplation is where you allow being to surpass its explanation. And this is called wisdom. The wise man is one who understands something that can never be reduced to his understanding.
Sorry, could you give an additional example beyond the campfire? Because that seems to be something where, like, we're investigating it, you find the cause, but is it not something, doesn't seem like something where you'd have to be like, so I'm going to allow that explanation to go beyond, to surpass the explanation.
I mean, you can, but it's pretty hard to contemplate that fact.
You give me
Except
another
if you went to the window and were like, you know. So maybe a better one would be something like, what makes a person alive? So I see you alive, and I'm just like, who are you? So I experience Catherine, and I'm just like, what an amazing person. And then I'd say to myself, one of these things, you know, what will Catherine be one day? What is a woman? You know, how does she move? What is she all about? What is she of? How does she get to be this way? Or how is she now? In any case, those questions, then I do some research. I watch how you move. I watch how you laugh. And when I come to the end of it, though, so I find then that you are gentle because your mom was gentle. And then I say to myself, and I go right back into Catherine, and I sit there and I say, and yet her gentleness is not her mom. So I get it, but there's a whole new way that's just called Catherine. And then I fall into silence. And this is where Cardinal Sarah comes in. And he's saying, if you don't have this silence, you're lacking something in your human being, your human life. You're going to stay in your sensations, where most men dwell their whole lives. Cool? This process is that of philosophy. And it might seem stupid to do because, you know, it seems like we obviously made it simple. But when you start asking philosophy of the living being, what makes a thing live? Why is it living? Where does it go when it dies? What is death? Am I my body or am I not my body? How can I lose a hand and not lose me? But if I lose a heart, I lose me. What's the difference between a hand and a heart? And how do they both look the same? How do I have two hands that match? What is genes, genomes? How is it that something heals and other things don't heal? How can my skin let water out but no water in? It's an amazing vortex right there. Why is it that my hair grows only to a certain length and then grows no further? And the hair on my head and my hair on my face is two different hair lengths and colors and styles. What controls this? Could a man's disposition make his hair fall out? Why? That's pretty cool. Why is it that some people seem to be smart and others not? What is smarts? How is it that some people seem to be more loving and others not? What is love? What is the difference between memory and emotion? How can I have emotional chastity? All of these questions. Everything concerning the experience of a living being is the field that we're embarking on in our class. What's the value to it? The value to it is that you are going to have the pillar, the foundational basis for grasping the church's ethics. We say should, shouldn't, women, men. Women should be kind, men should be bold. All of that presupposes this philosophical question. And this philosophy is, I've heard, I don't know, because I'm not an academic. I wish I was, frankly. If I was an academic, all day long I'd tweedle tum, and I'd be really smart for it. I just wouldn't have you with me. You wouldn't even be here. Okay, so anyway. I wish I was an academic, but I'm not. But I've heard from academics that this is the spot where the fiercest battles are waged. Because this is where materialism and realism collide. In a realistic perspective, Tim is greater than a dog. In a materialistic perspective, Tim is just a more complicated dog. In a materialistic perspective, we all came from slime, which means we're all slime bags. And to slime we shall return. In a realistic perspective, there's something in you that can never die. Those two worldviews colliding right here mean that the study that you're going to embark on here will explain a ton of things out there. And it will also enable you, having gone deeper, to engage in those debates at a whole new level. So, let's take a look at the wonderful syllabus slaved over by your dedicated teachers, bound together by metallic paper clips provided to you by Jack. Bree, why don't you read the first paragraph for us?
This course serves as an introduction to philosophy in general and the key questions surrounding the living being in particular. Using the writings of Aristotle as our primary source, whilst making reference to St. Thomas Aquinas when necessary, students will come to grasp the primary differences between the philosophical perspective of realism and the perspective of materialistic philosophy. This perspective will serve the needs of the dialogue of evangelization, provide a foundation for authentic pastoral and educative work, and open the students to an understanding of an authentic human life.
3 principal goals. So I put on other goals. The 3 importances, or 3 important outcomes, so to speak, of this are those 3. Number 1, furnishes you with the material to carry out the dialogue of evangelization. I have this understanding, I can talk about all kinds of issues without ever referencing God. And that is crucial. Because as soon as you say God, you are a hater, an Amish, and a weird person. And they stop listening to you. So you need to be able to talk about life without talking about God. Love without talking about God. Thought without talking about God. Because now they can't dismiss you. And to be able to do so cogently makes you a valuable contributor to the welfare of society. Which is what we need to be. Instead of simply correcting society, we need to build it. So we talk cogently based upon this class. Second, foundations for pastoral practice and education. As I approach a person, for example, and they come to me and they, I got a phone call today from someone whose friend is having an affair, her husband is having an affair on her, and she's devastated. She doesn't go to church. So she doesn't go to church, and she's convinced that God hates her. And I said, put her on the phone with me. I'm the coolest priest she's ever met. And I want to talk to her. So I've got a phone call tomorrow at 5 a.m. with this broken person. How do I approach her? Well, understanding the level of the emotions and understanding that link of the emotions to the will, I'm able to hear and listen to the emotions without thinking I'm wasting time. And I'm going to be able to try to find where the wound exactly is in her person that enabled her and even forced her in a situation that she's in right now. And having that dissective knowledge comes from this class. How do you do that? How do you justify listening to people who are saying nothing? It's very important to listen to people who are saying nothing because they're saying something. Or how do you justify listening to people who are saying all kinds of things? Where do you meet a person? How do you balance a life? How do you know when to exercise or when to eat poorly? When to celebrate life and when not to? You gotta know all this. That's where it comes from. Third outcome that's very important is I would like for you to discover your own greatness. Not just in terms of my terrible, injections of spirit, but to understand why I inject that spirit and its real foundation will actually make those injections all the more efficient. Because you'll be like, I get why he's saying that. What does it mean to live a higher life? What does it mean to live excellence? It's this class. Why don't we take a look at the other very important things in the syllabus? Regina.
Course objectives. Students will have familiarity with the writings of Aristotle on the soul. Students will be able to distinguish and understand the 3 degrees of life. Students will be able to compare and contrast a realistic understanding of the human person versus a materialistic vision of the human person. Students will be forgot some words. Will be
Students
able
will be
to
understand
understand the pathway to an authentically excellent human life.
Guys, I had to put up with this all last year, the whole year. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
That's a really funny one to forget on too.
Thank you so much. Moving right along, over to Catherine.
Pedagogical methods, lecture, note-taking, guided group discussion, reading of text.
Thank you so much. Over to Tim. And my class is falling into mockery.
Examination. 2 written tests. Beginning of October and beginning of November.
Lest you be surprised. I wouldn't want to take anyone
Possibly a pop
emotionally
quiz.
by the wrong foot.
And 1 final exam.
Excellent. And over to you.
Grading. Participation in class, 43%. Final exam, 25%. Written test, 32%.
This is no joke, you guys. No joke. All right. Over to the next part. I wouldn't even call on you. Catherine, you go direct together. Over here.
Course listing. Introduction to the course and introduction to philosophy. And then 2 weeks of
Tim, over to you. Thank you so much, you guys.
I believe it's supposed to be introduction. Is that introduction of the soul?
Is it induction?
Induction.
Is it?
All right.
Okay.
That's why she's laughing.
I'm
You're
sorry.
laughing.
Yeah, it's my mistake. Induction of the soul for 2 weeks. Then 2 weeks, 3 degrees of life. 2 weeks for the link between the body and the soul, and the body in its place. The spiritual power of the will for 2 weeks. Spiritual power of the intellect, and then a culture of authentic humanism. And then our final exam.
Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. What a course we have in front of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So nice to have such mirth. Why don't we go ahead and pray?